Hey guys, this is Miss Latours. We're over here at the Mount Juliet Library. We're going to do a longer lesson today about something that's really important in the world today. But let's start this way. Hey guys, it's payday. You're rich, right? Well, a lot of that depends upon how many bills you've got. You know, having money and spending it is like playing the game of Monopoly. You can either end up rich or like Freddie the Freeloader, you could end up absolutely broke. If you've got extra money, the smart thing to do is to take that money, put it aside for a rainy day. This way, if there's a situation in which you need that money, you just take it out of the bank and you use it then. The ideal situation is the amount of money coming in is going to be equal to the amount of money going out. This is what we call a budget. Mother Nature also has to deal with the budget as well. But instead of talking about money, we're talking about the amount of water that planet Earth has. What we're looking at over here is what we call the water cycle. Just like with money gained is equal to money lost, when we're talking about planet Earth, water gained is equal to water lost. When those two are equal with each other, this is what we call an equilibrium. An equilibrium is very good. In fact, most of the forces on planet Earth are in constant motion trying to maintain some type of an equilibrium. Now, in the case of water, what we're talking about is the amount of water that we gain. That comes as a result of precipitation. Whether it be rain or snow, it doesn't matter. It's still liquid water coming down. The way we lose water is by way of a process that we call evapotranspiration. Evapotranspiration is a combination of evaporation, water that's going to be evaporated from a lake or a river, or by the same token, transpiration, which is water that's going to be lost by way of trees and bushes and things to that nature. What we're talking about is called a water budget. This is how a water budget works, guys. Precipitation, meaning the amount of water that we gain, is going to be equal to evapotranspiration, meaning the amount of water that's going to be lost. When precipitation equals evapotranspiration, that's an equilibrium, that's good. But suppose the following happens. Suppose the amount of water gained in precipitation is greater than the amount of evapotranspiration or the amount of water lost. Now that means that we're gaining more water than we're actually losing. When that happens, what Mother Nature does is she's going to take the extra water and put it in the bank. And in the case of a bank, when we're talking about water, we're talking about groundwater, we're talking about rivers, we're talking about lakes. That's storage. She's storing the water in places that we're going to have access to it. However, if precipitation continues to be greater than evapotranspiration and all the areas that you would normally store the water in is filled, then the end result is we have flooding. Flooding is going to be a dangerous situation, and we've seen all sorts of examples of that, including the Great Flood from 10 years ago right here in beautiful Middle Tennessee. Now, suppose the following happens. Suppose precipitation, meaning the amount of water that we gain, is less than the amount of evapotranspiration, meaning that we're not gaining as much water as we're actually losing. Well, when that happens, remember all that water that we put in storage in lakes, rivers, and groundwater and things like that, we're going to use up that water. That's what we call usage. However, if after all that water that we've used is all gone, okay, and precipitation is still less than evapotranspiration, that's when we have a situation that we call a drought. Mother Nature likes things in equilibrium, precipitation being equal to evapotranspiration. Whenever that balance is upset, one way or the other, bad things happen. Mother Nature gets really, really angry. Now, for example, you see this book over here? It's part of a series that we've got over here. It's a great series. This particular one talks about the Dust Bowl. Now, the Dust Bowl is the situation in which evapotranspiration was greater than precipitation, meaning the amount of water that we lost was greater than the amount of water that we gained. When we've used up all of our groundwater and all of the water that we keep in storage, this creates a drought. This drought is going to devastate people like the American farmer. What happened was this created a perfect storm for windstorms. These windstorms were made even worse because it was such a drought condition. The top layers of soil didn't have plants to hold them in place. So what happens is, as the wind goes whipping around, it picks up this soil and it creates all sorts of major things like what you see over there in the bottom picture, black blizzards, or we also call them black rollers. This was common in the middle part of the United States, Texas, Oklahoma, and points north. Now, this is a real picture that you're looking at that happened in Oklahoma in 1936. These poor people are just surrounded by dust, and this is an area that used to be a farm. To make matters even worse for these poor people, this happens to hit during something that we call the Great Depression between 1929 and 1939. Between the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, people started to realize that where they were in places like Oklahoma and Texas wasn't going to work anymore. So what they did is they started to migrate towards California. The people that moved in these areas like that, we call these people Okies, okay? This is the type of circumstance that they were trying to get away from. Just recently in the northeastern regions of the United States, they had severe snowstorms, and they measured it by the amount of snow that they had. During the Dust Bowl, they actually measured the amount of dust that was dumped on areas as a result of that dust blizzard that you see over there as they're trying to outrun that dust in the Texas Panhandle. Take a look at this picture. Imagine waking up to a situation like that. You look out your bedroom window and there's this wall of dust that's coming at you, okay? The situations, especially for the American farmer, were terrible. Between the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression, look at that picture. You see the look of despair in that poor woman's face? Or look at this other picture over here. Imagine living like that. That's what the conditions were like for the farmers during the Dust Bowl and the Great Depression of the 1930s. It's impossible to imagine poverty like that existing, but it did in the 1930s. But now take a look at this picture over here. Sadly, poverty is timeless and is still with us. Have a good day, guys.